This is Grief and Grit, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass. The podcast that turns the tables on traditional grief talks with a fresh, sassy spin. Listen in for candid conversations about the messy, awkward, and downright hilarious aspects of dealing with loss. Because sometimes the best way to cope is with a little laughter and a lot of grit.
Hi.
Hi, Simonie.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Simonie,
I'm Greer.
and I've got actually not tea today. I've got peach juice.
Ooh.
Yeah, because ridiculous how warm it is still.
Mm.
And I know it's so warm all over the country
Mhm.
that I just felt like some cold peach juice with a little bit of ice.
It's funny because while you have your cold, I actually have normal coffee today without ice. I don't know what got into me.
Well, delicious. So whatever you're drinking, whatever you have, grab it, get comfortable, and here we go. So I thought today we would, because Thanksgiving is coming up,
Mhm.
and it's always a time to reflect
Mhm.
and, show, like, look at the word of Thanksgiving and having the word thanks in there. So today we're going to be talking about grief and gratitude
Mhm.
and how these two can coexist. I'm so excited for Thanksgiving, which I never thought I would ever be. But also, all my children are coming home.
Aw.
It's the first time since Bianca got married that we're all going to be together.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm so excited. And we are going to see Wicked.
Are you?
Oh, yes.
I'm so excited for
Yeah,
you.
one of my most favorite shows.
Oh my gosh.
And
I want to see it
Cannot
too.
wait to see it. Have you ever seen the live show?
So yes, I actually have a funny story for you. Jarrod and I saw it in Chicago, I think it was. And we were sitting in the theater. This was before we were married, I believe. And all of a sudden, when the baby is born, everyone starts laughing. And they're like, oh, just amazed. And because the baby's green. Well, Jarrod turns to me and he says, I don't get it. Like, what is it? And I said, the baby's green. And he just started laughing so hard because he was colorblind. And the whole time watching Wizard of Oz all those years, he had no idea the Wicked Witch was green. So it was one of those aha moments for him. And so I just had to share that story because I like every time there's Wizard of Oz or Wicked, I just laugh and giggle to myself because I'll never forget that.
That's hilarious. So he was completely colorblind?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it was red-green colorblind. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like he couldn't, yeah. So he could not help me pick paint colors and all the things.
Right.
Nor did he want to, but it was a good way to get out of it.
And he never knew the Wicked Witch was
No.
green. I love that.
Yes.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And I'm sure memory that you have, of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now, well, not then, but Thanksgiving coming up, taking the kids to see Wicked and certainly remembering that.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm
So-
excited to tell them the story. I don't know that they'll quite get it now, but definitely when they're older, they will very much learn to appreciate that story.
Oh, yeah. And that'll always be associated with Wizard of Oz and Wicked. I
Exactly.
love that.
Yeah.
So for me,
Mhm.
Thanksgiving was always a very difficult time.
Mm.
And Mark was actually diagnosed with leukemia Thanksgiving 2007.
Oh gosh.
So for many years after that, his illness and then, his subsequent passing away was kind of associated with Thanksgiving.
Of course.
So in the beginning, I used to always take the children away. We went anywhere and everywhere. I mean, I took them to places And I'm sure if you asked my children, they would be like, oh my God, where she only took us. But I just needed to get out
It's
of
an
town.
escape. Like
Mhm.
I get it.
I just didn't want to do it. It was just not a good time.
Mhm.
But as we know, grief finds its way to normalize things. And after a while, I realized that there was a thanks in Thanksgiving,
Mm.
and I needed to create something new for our kids, and I needed to be grateful. It was a time to really be grateful and to think about that, reflect on all the things that I had thanks to give for. And
Mhm.
there were many. There really were many. And so today, Thanksgiving is really such a lovely part of our family. We've always kept it just us.
Mhm.
We've never included friends, other family members. We've always just, I mean, I don't know if it's selfish or what it is, but it's just been for us. And we've
Right.
created new memories. And, we all now love Thanksgiving and
Mm.
are so grateful for so many of the things that we have in our life. And Thanksgiving just is a time to give that
Mhm.
thanks. So
Yeah.
that's what Thanksgiving, has become to us.
For me growing up, Thanksgiving was always just really nice and warm. I We would wake up and we would always watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in our
Right.
pajamas while
Right.
we were cooking and cleaning and doing all the things we needed before people came over for, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock,
Yes.
lunch, dinner, Leonard, like I don't know.
Right.
The feast. And it was just really, really nice. Like, whether it was everyone chopping, onions and vegetables or whatever it was. I think as we got older, we each even were assigned a recipe that, we had to make.
Mhm.
Um, and then after I met Jarrod, his mom hosted Thanksgiving every year. It was her favorite holiday and also one of his favorites. That and I think 4th of July, he called that hamburgers and hot dogs all day
Right.
day. Right?
Right.
Yes. So Thanksgiving, I think, was like maybe tied for first because he loved the food. And so then we actually had two Thanksgivings because
All right.
typically my parents hosted and then his parents also hosted, but
Yes.
thankfully the Mendel one was always at dinner. And I just remember, obviously COVID, we took a break, but then the first Thanksgiving after Jarrod died, I had just put Cosmo, our beloved dog of almost 13 years down, and we went to Folly Beach, me and the kids with Jared's parents and his siblings and their spouses and my nephew. And it felt like an escape for all of us
Yes.
because I think we weren't really feeling grateful for things at that point. I mean, it was only about 6 months later, and
Right.
it just we just were not in that gratitude stage, which is totally fine.
Of course.
But it was really nice being together, and I want to say it was the following year in 2022. I remember I went to a Kate's Club meeting. So Kate's Club is an organization here in Georgia that supports families who have lost a caregiver or a, a sibling. It supports the kids, but also the parents or caregivers who are still there.
Right.
And the kids did Clubhouse Day, and I went into the parent park bench group, and that was the topic, grief and gratitude. And I remember as we were talking, I really was able to be grateful. I had reached a point in my grief, thankfully, where my gratitude came from being grateful for the fact that we did have Jarrod,
Mm.
that we built this life and that, I had this gift of these two children.
Mhm.
And I know that every situation's different, but that was where I was able to find my gratitude. And also in the community surrounding us and continuing to lift us up.
Yeah.
And so Thanksgiving is now I've been able to come back around where it's a happier time now. The kids get off of school for a week, so it's extra time to spend with them. It's just more laid back, not having to deal with all the homework and everything, and being with friends and family. I mean, that's ultimately what it's about.
Absolutely. And as we know, grief is so complex, right?
Mhm.
And it's so deeply personal. It's a personal experience for everyone and very challenging to navigate. We're talking grief, whatever that loss may be. Um, and there's so many layers to grief. It's like an onion. I always say it's an onion, and we just peel the layers.
Mhm.
And for me, it was like, each Thanksgiving, another piece of another layer was taken off. And
Right.
so, that doesn't mean the grief goes away,
Mhm.
but it kind of finds another place.
Yes.
And I think gratitude in grief, and yes, for anyone listening, if you are new to grief and loss, it's almost impossible to imagine that you'll ever be grateful for anything again in your life.
Right.
And that's fine because it took us both a really long time, as we've both said, to find that. But it's not, it is possible for grief and gratitude to coexist. It's possible for to find different meaning. You find healing, there's growth, there's hope, all these emotions. So if we want to look at those one by one, um, for me, being able to heal from experiencing a loss of trauma, um, it kind of does bring some peace. In the beginning, when you go through your loss, it's this rawness, it's this ache, it's this pain, it's a very physical pain that consumes your every day to day life, every minute. But then when you start to heal and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is maybe getting a little better, maybe I can cope with this a little bit more, there is a certain amount of peace that comes over you. And unless you have been through a trauma, that peace is something that I guess people who don't know it just take it for granted. But for me, every day that I have peaceful moments and fulfilled moments and feelings of being healed is a day that I'm so grateful to be aware of those feelings and that nice warm, it's like a warm blanket that, peace is like a warm blanket that you throw over yourself. And I think that is so much a part of the gratitude that coexists with grief.
Yes. And, in addition to the trauma itself, there's uh, through grief in our gratitude, we find resilience. That is our resilience, is
Absolutely.
being able to overcome. And I think I've said this before, but I read somewhere nobody wants to be in a position where they have to be resilient. Nobody, because that means we've had to face adversity. We've had to overcome things that are hard, things that we don't want to have to deal with. But the reality is, grief presents us with that. We've lost something special, something meaningful, someone. And being able to find that peace, as you were saying, there's always that tug at the heartstrings, but being able to look back and smile about something, those are those glimmers. And when you start to have those glimmers, That's resilience. That's you appreciating that memory. That's you looking back and being appreciative of having that person in your life. It's the gratitude. So be really mindful as you are finding grief in your gratitude and recognize that resiliency because it is so hard, but you're doing it. You're
Exactly.
doing it.
Exactly. And, you know, unfortunately, and I think these go hand in hand, with resilience comes growth. And unfortunately, we've all learned in life that without challenges, without adversity, there is no growth. There's no growth to us. And who wants to swim in the rivers of sameness for the rest of your life? Sometimes, as much as we don't want to, we want to swim upstream against the current, because when you get to where you're going, it's a great feeling that, wow, I've grown. And I look at myself and I think, and I've said this in previous episodes as well, that I have grown so much in so many ways that I am so not the person I was 16 years ago. And for that, I am grateful. Of course, I would rather not have gone through what I have, but I was able to grow from it. And I don't take that lightly. I don't take that for granted. And I have great gratitude that I was able to see the enormity of being able to grow from something as horrible, sad, and create this life that I have.
That's so beautifully said. It's funny because as I look back, and I see the kids, obviously, every day, and my both of them in their own ways just want to grow up and they want to be adults and they want to do adult things. And I just keep telling them, like, stop growing.
Yes.
Just stay the way you are right now. And I joke with friends of mine, adulting is hard. Like, if I knew that this was what adulting was when I was little, I would have wanted to just like be Peter Pan and find Never Land and like
100%.
never deal with this
Yeah,
stuff because
yeah.
it's so hard. I don't think anything quite prepares us for this.
No.
But again, we find that resiliency, we find that to what Simonie was saying, that empowerment. We do grow from these things. Did we have a choice in the matter? No. But we grow and we transform into the people that we are now after such a significant loss or trauma.
And I think also important is that, when you go through something, with the growth comes compassion, empathy, understanding,
Absolutely.
and those are such important qualities to have, tolerance. And I know it's a cliche, but I just don't sweat the small stuff anymore. And I think that is so real and so important that, you know what, if it's not going to work today, and even a small thing like, so the house is not as clean today, I'll get to it tomorrow or the next day, because there's so many more important things. And I think it brings us to the point of wanting to enjoy and embrace as much of life as you can, because you do realize that life is short and your life can change in an instant. So it's important to not sweat the small stuff. Take that trip, go for a walk, whatever it is, but embrace life as much as you can.
Our perspective changes after going through, such a loss. And again, there's gratitude in that, not having to sweat the small stuff, not being worried about, silly things. That's something that I've really become appreciative of because I used to sweat the small stuff. Can't talk. If we were running late or, I would have so much anxiety over little things. And I mean, they're just not. They're really not. And there are some ways that we think can help the journey in terms of getting to a place of gratitude, even if it's just a little glimmer, whatever it is. And one of those ways is keeping a gratitude journal. It can be as small as a simple task of getting out of bed in the morning. Whatever it is that you can do to push yourself a little bit, or whether it's getting out of bed or to go back and read something from yesterday that you were appreciative of, or again, just something that you saw. Maybe it was a pretty sunset. Maybe it was a beautiful tree with all the changing fall leaves. There is beauty out there.
And it's important also to celebrate the small and big steps that you've taken. Find your cheerleader, find the person who is going to say, yes, you got out of bed today, or you cooked a meal, or wow, you read a book. Which brings me to the point that for me, 16 years ago, I was an avid reader, and I ran book clubs. I never not, I always had a book in my hand. Mark passed away, and I haven't read a book other than self-help books and books on grief. I have not sat down and read a book in 16 years. And it took me a while. I fought that. I would sit down and I would force myself to. But then I was like, that's okay. It's part of my journey. But what I'm saying is that now if I do read a paragraph of something, I'm like so grateful, because it's those small things, and cheer yourself on. Whatever it is that you have put on hold in your life, cheer yourself on when you do it. Be grateful that you have done it. Find the people who encourage those steps. Um, practice mindfulness, whatever that looks like to you. It could be taking a walk, it could be meditating, taking a yoga class, lying in bed watching a movie, a soap opera, whatever it is that brings you some kind of peace, that centers you, that takes your mind to a place that is not so fraught with the anxiety, with the loss, with the sadness surrounding your loss.
And another one is reflect on those positive memories. And those are, again, the glimmers, and really embrace them. Don't push them away. Because the reality is, if you don't, they're just going to explode where you can't control it. The pain will get easier if you let yourself have those memories and think of them and process them. Not doing so is just going to come back, and it's just too much. It's unbearable. So really take advantage of those glimmers as they're coming and acknowledge them as beauty, as a glimmer.
Exactly. Because you don't want that pressure cooker to build and build and then explode. And it will. It will explode at some point. And connect with others, find your community. And of course, for Greer and I, this podcast is creating that community. And we hope that you find with each episode, you're finding comfort, you're finding that you don't feel so isolated, and that you are part of a community where you're not alone. The entire world suffers from some kind of loss, some kind of trauma. And it's important to find that community, people you can speak to, people you can relate to, and people who understand your story, and you can create a safe space to be in there.
And then the last one is to really enjoy the beauty around you. Keep breathing. Put one foot in front of the other. and be grateful that you still get to live a full life. We just have to take those steps towards that full life. We have to consciously decide that it is a good life and that it can be a good life, and we can continue to create good memories. And if things are just feeling really dark and dim around you, try to look somewhere else, whether it's reaching out to a friend or, going on a walk. The other ways that we've mentioned, they're all interconnected. And just really take that breath, the deep breath. It will calm you and it will help you see things differently.
And I just want to add there as well. Talk about your loss. Talk about
Oh
the
my gosh, yes.
person. Talk about the person. Talk about whatever the loss is. Talk about it. That helps memories stay alive. That helps you. It's not, if a person has gone, it doesn't mean that they have to be gone completely. It's important to speak their name, talk about memories that you have. That's all part of the healing process. So, as you can see, grief and gratitude can definitely coexist. Embracing gratitude in your journey, you can foster resilience, find meaning and purpose in your experiences. And from this, our wish to you is that you achieve peace, acceptance, and growth. And like we say always, just be patient with yourself. These things take time. These things don't just happen overnight, and there's no timeline. But to be aware of all these things is important and, will help you in the journey, in the years, the months, the days to come. So, wishing you all a peaceful Thanksgiving. May you find contentment. May you find your new journey. Um,
And
still embracing your old.
yes, and maybe discover a few glimmers over the Thanksgiving holiday.
And we would love to hear from you. Just send a note out to say just one thing that happened to you over Thanksgiving that was a significant change for you, a significant step forward. We're here for you. We want to create this community. And, we thank you for being part of our lives. We feel so honored to have you all.
We do. And we're giving an extra, strong hug. Try to feel that if you can. We know that holidays and times like this are extremely triggering. And we just really wish for this time to bring you some added peace this year. So, sending those hugs, and feel free to reach out, as Simonie said, griefandgritpodcast@gmail.com. And we look forward to chatting with you in December.
And us, you can find us on any of your streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, so thank you. We are so grateful for you all, and we'll speak to you in December.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you love what you heard, please follow Grief and Grit and share our podcast with your friends and family.